Hey Dante, it's Keaton Everett with ABC, going over your pitching video from camp. We're going to go through and talk a little bit about your mechanics and the way you're throwing the ball and some things we can kind of work on to help you going forward here. So anyways, we're going to start off and kind of go through step by step and break down your mechanics. You know, so much about getting consistent with our mechanics is how we're starting. You know, a lot of kind of what we need to do through our delivery happens right off the bat, sort of in the start of your motion. You know, basically a lot happens basically from here. Where you start is going to dictate a lot of how everything's going to finish out here. All right, so we really are going to focus a lot on sort of this initial setup. All right, so right off the bat, we're going to go through and sort of look at, you know, your setup of your feet. All right, so you can see here. We just kind of key in on your feet here. We'll click through a couple of frames here. You can see how your foot kind of has to go backwards. All right. So what we want to try to do is just move that foot back a little bit more over the rubber, so the ball of your foot, instead of right here, is right up against that rubber, so you kind of have a nice little pivot on your foot, so you turn right in and your foot's going to be right up against the rubber. All right. So back here at your setup, all you're going to do is just kind of bump your feet back, so now they're, you know, that ball of your foot's about right there, so you don't have to go backwards with it. All right, you can kind of see how you step forward a little bit and then kind of have to go back and find that rubber. And so what that does with everything is that kind of makes you go forward with your head. You kind of watch keying on your head. You know, you go kind of out of that box forward, and then you kind of go back into it. And we want to just try to keep our head in that box the whole time. So you just kind of get that little initial bump and you know, we just kind of want to try to keep that over the rubber a little bit more. All right, so next thing that we look at is the balance point. All right, and you have a really good balance point here, and what we mean by that is we draw a box over your head in a line sort of, you know, down your spine. You can see it's over your back foot. All right, as you're lifting up that leg, all right, you're just kind of keeping your head over that foot, which is good. All right, one thing to work on too is watching what your gloves doing. All right, so as you're lifting that leg up, all right, you can kind of see your gloves kind of up around your chin area. As you lift your foot, it kind of drops down and then gets going. All right, what we want to try to get is, you can see how your glove and your hand stay together till about right here. You can kind of see that ball popping out back there. All right, so try to get to a habit of trying to eliminate this distance here. All right, we want to try to get, as this foot's coming up here, just keep these hands kind of down here a little bit lower. All right, and all that does, that just kind of cleans you up. That doesn't, you know, make it so hard to kind of get that timing, and so it just kind of cuts that distance down, just cleans everything up. So just try to get to a point where your glove is about right here throughout your whole delivery, instead of, you know, up top and then coming down. All right, these are just kind of simple, easy little things to kind of help get you consistent, time you up a little bit easier. But you know, the big thing is you're staying balanced over that back foot, which is good. So that's a really good starting point. All right, so once you kind of clean those hands up, now the timing of what everything needs to happen at this point here, let me get up to it. So basically where your knee gets to its highest point, all right, which is about right here, what we want to see is our hips start to go forward. We want to see that ball start coming out of our glove, and we want to kind of see our hips lead down the mountain. All right, so as we click forward here, you can kind of see your body really hasn't started moving yet. All right, if we draw a box around your hips here, you can see your gloves coming down, your legs coming down, and now your hips kind of just starting to come out of that box, and your leg is pretty much straight right here. All right, and then you kind of come down here. So what we want to try to get to a point of getting to is, once we kind of get to about, you know, right at that peak here, is we want to try to see some momentum. We want to try to see some movement forward. All right, so at this point, you know, once we start clicking, instead of just kind of sitting here with your hips and having your leg go down, we want to try to see your hips start to go out a little bit more. All right, so at this point in the frame, you know, we might be out here a little bit more. All right, your back foot's, you know, you're still on the rubber here, and your leg's probably somewhere right here. All right, So we just want to try to see you get a little bit more movement with those hips, get a little bit more active in that lower body, and that's where you're going to get all that power and velocity when you get older and get a little bit stronger. All right. So just try to get that initial, stay balanced, but once those hands break, get those hips, get that lower half going towards the target, and you'll start kind of creating a little bit more power with everything. All right. Another kind of little easy fix that will help you get consistent is getting to this point of once you get to your foot strike. All right. So once we get that left foot, once that first hits the ground, which looks like it's about right here, all right, you can see how your upper body's forward a little bit. All right. You can get a sort of a little bit of lean in that upper body, which is a big strength deal. You know, it'll get a lot easier as you get older, but you know, just to focus on it now is we want to try to see you stay back a little bit more over that back hip, back here a little bit. All right. And one thing that will help you sort of maintain that posture is you can see your gloves getting really good at staying out front. All right. You got a good angle in your arms. All right. Nothing's showing, you know, too much risk injury back here. So what we want to try to get is more weight staying on this back side and less weight on this front side here. All right. And go back here is your gloves just a little bit lagging back behind. All right. We want to try to see it get out and sort of stay over that front foot a little bit more and get this elbow up a little bit higher at about, you know, right about here. We should start to sort of see that elbow get up a little bit higher and that glove out a little bit farther, and that'll kind of keep your weight back. All right, you can see that elbow never really gets parallel with your shoulder until about right here, right at foot strike. That's when it gets parallel. All right, just try to get a little bit more up, get this glove out a little bit higher here, and that'll kind of act like a little pendulum and keep you back in your backside a little bit more. All right, so at foot strike, you know, we kind of went over that, is we just need a little bit more weight in this backside. All right, and a little bit less on that front side, you know, weight back still a little bit more of that upper body. And then through that release, through that finish, you're going to see a lot more power from your lower half. You know, that's where all that velocity is created. That's where all that power is created, that lower half. You know, your ability for that hip right here to start turning before that your shoulders start turning. You can see that we just kind of cue in on your shoulders and your hips as they're rotating at the same time. And again, that strength, it's you're young. As you get older, that'll happen a lot easier. But we want to try to see your hips in this position, and then your arms in that sort of that foot strike position we were talking about back there. All right, so you're just kind of rotating early at the same time, and you're seeing this front foot, this front knee get out a little bit over that front laces of your shoe. All right, we want to try to see that knee not ever really get past, you know, that perpendicular to that ground right there. All right, so everything's just a little bit out front. You're just kind of rotating a little bit earlier, and then through your release point, you know, you're seeing how that elbow's getting out a little bit in front, and you're just kind of pushing the ball a little bit. All right, then you're doing good at keeping your glove out here. You're fixing that glove out there. That's good. And then as you get more in that lower half, using more of those legs, you're going to start seeing yourself finish instead of, you know, at this angle. You're going to start seeing that back get a little bit more flat. All right, so we want to try to get to a point where, you know, you're just using so much lower half, you're having so much momentum that your legs, you know, kicking up back here, and you're just flat. You're using all that core, all that lower half, all those hips, all that back, instead of kind of falling backwards towards the mound. So it's just a matter of just sort of resyncing that lower half. But initially, just once you hit that balance point, break those hands and get going towards the play. All right, you got a pretty good foundation of mechanics and everything. So that's just a matter of, as you get older, get stronger, you know, you kind of have the ideas ready. So when that strength comes, you're going to be able to dial it in and hopefully throw some gas. So anyways, thanks for making it out to camp. Hopefully you had a great time, and we look forward to seeing you again with ABC.